Millionaire's Heartbreak, a bold plan to win back love and dignity, a story of pain and redemption. The city skyline glimmered under the evening sky, its bright lights reflecting the ambition and triumph of those who thrived within its towering walls. Among them was Ethan Blake, a self-made millionaire whose empire of success seemed untouchable. Known for his razor-sharp mind and unyielding determination, Ethan was a man who lived to win. Yet tonight, the weight of an elegant wedding invitation on his desk shattered his usual composure. His ex-fiancée, Cassandra, was marrying another man, a rival Ethan couldn't stand. The thought of their union, of whispers among high society mocking him as the one who couldn't keep her, was a wound to his pride. Refusing to show weakness, Ethan devised a daring plan. Would his calculated move mend his pride or unravel everything he thought he controlled? Stay with us as we uncover a story of pride, vulnerability, and unexpected transformation. Leave a comment below. Would you risk it all to protect your image? Let's dive into this tale of redemption and growth. The sun dipped behind the towering skyscrapers, casting long shadows over the city streets as the evening rush buzzed with life. From the 20th floor balcony of his penthouse, Ethan Blake swirled a glass of scotch in his hand, his sharp blue eyes staring down at the glittering world he controlled. Ethan was a self-made millionaire, the mastermind behind a thriving tech empire, and a man used to commanding respect and admiration wherever he went. Yet tonight, his confidence felt brittle, overshadowed by the elegant invitation resting on the sleek glass table beside him. It was embossed with gold foil, announcing the upcoming wedding of his ex-fiancée, Cassandra, to a man Ethan despised, Ryan Chambers. Ethan clenched his jaw, the thought of them together eating away at his composure. It wasn't just about losing Cassandra. It was about pride, the image he had meticulously built. He could already imagine the whispers at the wedding. Ethan Blake couldn't keep her. The humiliation was unbearable. He drained his glass in one sharp motion and turned back into the room. His eyes fell on Mia, his personal assistant, who was organizing contracts near his desk. She was young, with a natural elegance that she didn't seem to realize. Her dark brown hair was tied back in a loose ponytail, and her green eyes were focused on the papers in front of her. She moved efficiently, her actions always precise and deliberate. "Come here, Mia," Ethan said, his voice firm but not unkind. Mia looked up, surprised. "Yes, Mr. Blake? I need you to attend an event with me," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "A wedding?" Mia blinked, the pen in her hand hovering midair. "A wedding? With all due respect, Mr. Blake, I'm your assistant, not a date." Ethan smirked, leaning against the edge of his desk. "I'm not asking, Mia. I'm offering you an opportunity. You'll be compensated generously. All you have to do is accompany me, look stunning, and say as little as possible." Mia stared at him, her brows knitting together in disbelief. "You're serious?" "Completely." She set down the papers, crossing her arms. "Why me?" Ethan's smile faltered for a second, but he quickly recovered. "Because you're different. You're not part of the socialite crowd, and that's exactly what I need." Mia narrowed her eyes, sensing the double-edged nature of the compliment. "And if I say no, then I'll find someone else," Ethan said simply. "But I don't think you will. The money could help you finally start that small business you've been talking about." Her breath caught. Of course, he knew. Ethan always noticed everything, even if he rarely acknowledged it. Mia thought of her overdue bills, the dream she'd shelved for years, and the sheer absurdity of the situation. "Fine," she said after a long pause. "But just this once." Ethan's lips curled into a victorious smile. "Good. We have a lot to prepare." The next morning, a luxury car arrived outside Mia's modest apartment. As she stepped inside, she felt out of place among the plush leather seats and subtle scent of wealth. The driver took her to a high-end boutique in the heart of the city, where a stylist greeted her with a critical eye. "We're going to make you shine," the stylist declared, motioning for her team to bring out an array of dresses, shoes, and accessories. Mia felt like a mannequin as they draped her in silk and sequins, pinned her hair into elegant styles, and applied makeup that made her look like someone she barely recognized. When Ethan arrived, impeccably dressed as always in a tailored suit, he surveyed her transformation with a calculating gaze. "She needs to look sophisticated but natural," he instructed. "We're not aiming for a runway look." Mia couldn't hold back. "Maybe I could have a say in what makes me feel comfortable?" Ethan let out a short laugh. "Comfort isn't the goal here, Mia. Impressing people is." Her frustration simmered, but she kept her mouth shut. If this was the price of paying her bills and chasing her dreams, she'd endure it. For now, after hours of fittings and adjustments, they settled on an elegant navy blue dress that hugged her figure without being overdone. When Mia looked at herself in the mirror, she hardly recognized the poised woman staring back. For a fleeting moment, she felt powerful. "This will do," Ethan said, as if signing off on a project. Mia rolled her eyes. "Glad I meet your standards." Ethan smirked. "You're learning." The following days were a whirlwind of preparation. Ethan hired an etiquette coach to teach Mia the art of blending into high society. She spent hours practicing her posture, her smile, even how to hold a champagne flute. At one point, she snapped, "I'm pretty sure I can handle a glass without spilling it." Ethan, watching from across the room, raised an eyebrow. "You're here to excel, not to be average." Mia's fists clenched at his tone, but she bit her tongue. "Why does this matter so much to you?" she asked, her voice quieter but no less pointed. Ethan hesitated, his mask slipping just enough for her to catch a glimpse of vulnerability. "Some things can't be bought, Mia," he said, his voice softer. "Let's just say this is personal." She wanted to push further but decided against it. Something told her she wasn't ready for the answer. On the morning of the wedding, Mia felt like she was stepping into another world. The mansion was a palace of crystal chandeliers, sprawling gardens, and gilded decor. Ethan, dressed in an impeccable black tuxedo, waited for her at the bottom of the grand staircase. When she descended, his expression softened for a moment, almost imperceptibly. "You look adequate," he said, though there was a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Thanks," Mia replied dryly. "You're as charming as ever." In the car ride to the wedding, the tension between them was palpable. Mia's stomach churned as she thought about what lay ahead. Stepping into a room filled with people who didn't know her, who likely wouldn't care to. "Remember," Ethan said as they pulled up to the venue, "tonight you're not just my assistant. You're my partner. Act like you belong." Mia straightened her back, meeting his gaze. "I don't need to act, Ethan. I just need to survive this." As they stepped out of the car, all eyes turned to them. The whispers began immediately, but Mia held her head high. She wasn't going to let this world intimidate her. Not tonight. And as Ethan offered her his arm, Mia felt the stirrings of something she couldn't quite name. This wasn't just about the wedding anymore. This was the beginning of something much larger, something neither of them fully understood yet. The grand ballroom was a sea of elegance, filled with powerful men in tailored suits and women draped in designer gowns. Glittering chandeliers cast a warm glow over the polished marble floor, while the soft hum of a string quartet filled the air. Mia clung to Ethan's arm, her heart racing as whispers followed them across the room. "Who is she? She's stunning. Definitely not someone from our circles." Ethan Blake's new companion? Mia kept her head high, her practiced smile firmly in place. But inside, she felt like an imposter. The weight of the stairs was heavy, but she reminded herself why she was here. This was a job no different from the countless tasks she had taken on over the years, except it involved wearing heels that felt like torture devices. Ethan leaned closer as they approached the main table. "You're doing well," he murmured, his voice low and smooth. "Just remember to smile and nod when necessary." "Thanks for the vote of confidence," Mia replied under her breath. She could feel the tension in his grip, his usual air of control slipping slightly. At the center of the room stood Cassandra, the bride, radiant in a gown that shimmered with every step. Her laughter was light, effortless, as she chatted with a group of guests. Next to her was Ryan, her groom, every bit the polished gentleman. When Cassandra's gaze met Ethan's, her smile faltered for a brief second before she quickly recovered, her eyes narrowing slightly as she noticed Mia. Ethan tightened his hold on Mia's arm. "Ready?" he asked, though it sounded more like a warning. "For what?" Mia whispered back. "For the game," Ethan said, his voice firm. Cassandra approached them with the kind of poise only someone born into wealth could master. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. She offered Ethan a cool smile, her eyes flicking to Mia with thinly veiled curiosity. "Ethan," Cassandra said, her voice smooth as silk. "What a surprise. I didn't think you'd come." Ethan returned her smile, though his was edged with something sharper. "Of course I came. Wouldn't miss it for the world." Cassandra's gaze landed on Mia. "And who's your lovely companion?" Mia extended her hand, her smile as polished as the pearls Cassandra wore. "Mia, it's a pleasure to meet you." Cassandra shook her hand, her grip firmer than necessary. "The pleasure is mine." Ethan always did have a taste for unique company. Mia felt the jab but kept her composure. "Thank you. It's been fascinating meeting so many wonderful people tonight." Cassandra's smile tightened, and for a moment, her perfect facade seemed to crack. Ethan stepped in, his voice cutting through the tension. "Mia has been an incredible partner, both professionally and personally. I couldn't think of anyone better to bring tonight." The word partner hung in the air, its implications impossible to ignore. Cassandra's expression wavered, but before she could respond, Ryan joined them, his friendly demeanor diffusing the moment. "Ethan," Ryan said, shaking his hand, "glad you could make it. And Mia, welcome. Cassandra didn't mention you'd be joining us." "I'm full of surprises," Ethan replied, his tone almost playful. Ryan chuckled, oblivious to the undercurrents between the others. "Enjoy the evening. We're glad you're here." As the couple moved on to greet other guests, Ethan led Mia toward the bar. His grip on her arm loosened, but the tension in his shoulders remained. "Are all your social events this charming?" Mia asked, raising an eyebrow. Ethan let out a short laugh, though it lacked humor. "You handled yourself well. Cassandra can be difficult." "Difficult," Mia repeated. "She practically insulted me." "You're tougher than that," Ethan said, his tone dismissive. "Don't let her get to you." Mia bit back a retort, focusing instead on the flute of champagne handed to her by a waiter. As the evening wore on, she observed the way Ethan navigated the room, his charm effortless but calculated. He spoke to guests with an ease that came from years of practice, but Mia noticed how his gaze would drift toward Cassandra when he thought no one was watching. It wasn't jealousy Mia felt, at least she didn't think so. It was something more complicated, a mix of sympathy and frustration. Ethan was a man used to control, yet tonight, he seemed out of his depth, masking his emotions behind sharp wit and forced smiles. As the evening wound down, the guests moved to the dance floor. Ethan turned to Mia, offering his hand. "Dance with me," he said, though it sounded more like an order than a request. Mia hesitated. "I'm not exactly a professional." "You'll be fine," he said, taking her hand before she could protest. The music was slow, a waltz that felt out of place in the modern setting. Ethan led with practiced precision, his movements confident but not overbearing. Mia stumbled once, but he steadied her with a firm grip. "You're not bad," Ethan said, a hint of amusement in his voice. "Thanks," Mia replied, her tone dry. "I'm thrilled to meet your low expectations." For the first time that evening, Ethan laughed. A genuine, unguarded sound that caught Mia off guard. "I'll admit you've exceeded them." Mia glanced around the room, noticing Cassandra watching them from across the floor. Her expression was hard to read, but there was no mistaking the intensity of her gaze. "Is this what you wanted?" Mia asked quietly. "To make her jealous?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "It's not about jealousy." "Then what is it about?" Mia pressed. Ethan didn't answer immediately. His grip on her hand tightened slightly, and for a moment, he looked almost vulnerable. "It's about reminding her, and everyone else, that I don't lose." Mia frowned, her steps faltering. "That's what this is to you? A game?" Ethan stopped, his gaze locking onto hers. "It's more than that." "Then prove it," Mia said, pulling away from him as the song ended. "Because right now it feels like I'm just a pawn." The car ride home was silent, the tension between them thick. Mia stared out the window, replaying the events of the evening in her mind. Ethan, for all his arrogance and control, was more complicated than she had realized. There was pain beneath his polished exterior, but she wasn't sure she wanted to be the one to uncover it. When they arrived at her apartment, Ethan broke the silence. "Mia." She turned to him, her expression guarded. "What?" "Thank you," he said, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it. "For tonight." Mia hesitated, then nodded. "Good night, Ethan." As she closed the door behind her, Mia felt a strange mix of relief and unease. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Ethan Blake was a man who didn't give up easily, and she had a sinking feeling that her role in his life was far from finished. The days following the wedding left Ethan unsettled. The image of Cassandra's piercing gaze and Mia's cutting words haunted him. For a man who prided himself on being in control, Ethan felt unmoored. He had achieved what he set out to do: command attention, stir curiosity, and reclaim a semblance of power, but the victory rang hollow. The one person he couldn't stop thinking about had walked away, unimpressed by his calculated games. Mia, on the other hand, found herself replaying the evening in her mind. Ethan's vulnerability, however fleeting, had struck a chord she wasn't ready to acknowledge. She told herself she wanted nothing more to do with his world, but deep down, she wondered if there was more to Ethan Blake than the polished veneer he presented. A week later, Ethan showed up unannounced at Mia's modest apartment. He stood at her door, his usually confident demeanor tinged with hesitation. Mia, dressed in casual jeans and a sweater, raised an eyebrow at the sight of him. "Ethan," she said flatly, "this is unexpected." "I need to talk to you," he replied, his voice uncharacteristically soft. Mia crossed her arms, leaning against the doorframe. "You could have called. You wouldn't have answered," he said, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. She couldn't argue with that. After a pause, she stepped aside, allowing him in. The stark contrast between her cozy living room and the opulence Ethan was accustomed to wasn't lost on either of them. Ethan sat on the edge of the couch, his hands clasped tightly. For a moment, he seemed lost for words, an unusual sight for the always composed CEO. "What do you want, Ethan?" Mia asked, her tone guarded. "I owe you an apology," he said finally, meeting her gaze. "For everything." Mia blinked, taken aback. "Everything?" "For using you," he clarified. "For dragging you into my mess without thinking about how it might affect you." Mia frowned. "Why now? What changed?" Ethan sighed, leaning back against the couch. "That night at the wedding, I realized something. I've spent my whole life trying to prove something, to Cassandra, to the people around me, maybe even to myself. But in doing that, I've pushed away the few people who actually matter." Mia's heart softened despite herself. "And you think I'm one of those people?" "Yes," Ethan said without hesitation. "You've been honest with me in a way no one else has. You've called me out when I deserved it, and you've shown me a side of life I've been too blind to see." Mia stared at him, searching for any sign of insincerity. But his expression was open, his usual mask of arrogance nowhere to be found. "Ethan," she began, her voice steady, "I'm not interested in being another piece in your game." "This isn't a game," he said quickly. "Not anymore." Over the next few weeks, Ethan made good on his promise to change. He began reevaluating his priorities, taking a step back from the cutthroat social circles he had once thrived in. He focused on his company, implementing initiatives that prioritized sustainability and community impact. It was a departure from his usual profit-driven strategies, and many of his colleagues questioned his motives. Mia watched from a distance, skeptical but intrigued. Ethan reached out occasionally, inviting her to coffee or casual walks in the park. Slowly, She found herself letting her guard down, allowing glimpses of the man behind the facade. One afternoon, Ethan surprised Mia with an invitation. "I'm hosting a charity gala," he said over the phone, "and I'd like you to come." "Ethan, I'm not sure. This isn't like the wedding," he interrupted. "It's not about appearances. It's about something real." Mia hesitated but eventually agreed. The gala was held in a transformed warehouse, the space adorned with soft lighting and elegant decor. Unlike the extravagant settings Ethan typically frequented, this event had an understated charm. Guests mingled over locally sourced food and admired artwork created by underprivileged youth, a cause the gala supported. Mia arrived in a simple navy dress, her hair styled in loose waves. Ethan greeted her at the entrance, his expression warm and genuine. "You look beautiful," he said, his voice free of pretense. "Thanks," Mia replied, her cheeks flushing slightly. "This place looks amazing. I wanted it to feel different," Ethan said, gesturing toward the room. "More grounded." Mia nodded, impressed. "You've definitely achieved that." As the evening progressed, Mia observed Ethan interacting with the guests. He seemed more relaxed, more authentic. When he spoke about the cause, there was genuine passion in his voice, a stark contrast to the calculated charm she had seen at the wedding. Later in the evening, Ethan found Mia standing by a table of paintings created by the children benefiting from the event. "Thank you for coming," he said, his tone earnest. Mia turned to him, a small smile playing on her lips. "You've changed, Ethan." He held her gaze. "Because of you." Mia's smile faltered. "Don't put that on me. Change has to come from within." "It has," Ethan said firmly, "but you made me see the need for it. You made me realize I don't want to be the person I was." Mia studied him for a moment before nodding. "Then prove it." In the months that followed, Ethan continued to transform. His business decisions reflected a newfound sense of purpose, and his relationships with others became more meaningful. He and Mia grew closer, their connection deepening with each shared moment. It wasn't a fairy tale romance. It was messy, complicated, and real. One evening, as they walked through the park, Ethan stopped abruptly. He turned to Mia, his expression serious. "I need to ask you something," he said. "What is it?" Mia asked, her brow furrowing. "Will you stay by my side?" Ethan asked, his voice steady but tinged with vulnerability. "Not as a pawn, not as part of a plan, but as someone I care about deeply." Mia's heart raced. She thought about the man she had met months ago, the one who had used arrogance as a shield. The man standing before her now was different. Still flawed, still learning, but undeniably trying. "I'll stay," she said finally, her voice soft, "but only if you promise to keep growing, to keep being better." Ethan smiled, his relief palpable. "I promise." As they continued their walk, the city lights casting a warm glow around them, Mia felt a sense of hope she hadn't expected. Their journey wasn't over, but for the first time, she believed they were headed in the right direction. Together, the tale of Ethan Blake and Mia reveals a powerful lesson. True transformation starts within. Ethan's journey from an arrogant millionaire obsessed with pride and control to a man striving for authenticity is a reminder that change, though difficult, is possible when one confronts their flaws and embraces vulnerability. Mia, on the other hand, serves as a beacon of integrity and strength. Her refusal to be a pawn in Ethan's schemes, coupled with her unwavering authenticity, not only challenged him but inspired him to rise above his ego. Together, they demonstrate the importance of mutual growth in relationships. Not perfection, but an honest effort to be better for oneself and for each other. This story resonates because it mirrors real-life struggles. How often do we, like Ethan, get caught up in the image we present to the world, neglecting what truly matters? And how many of us, like Mia, find ourselves questioning whether to trust those who've hurt us but show genuine efforts to change? Ethan and Mia's evolving partnership reminds us that forgiveness and trust are not given lightly. They are earned through consistent actions. Their connection, forged in honesty and mutual respect, is proof that even the most flawed among us can find redemption when we're willing to work for it. Did Ethan's transformation inspire you? What would you do in Mia's place? Would you have given him a second chance? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales that remind us of the beauty of growth, love, and second chances. Let's play a quick game. If you believe in the power of change and the courage it takes to forgive, type redemption in the comments. Your words could inspire someone else to reflect on their own journey. Thank you for being part of this storytelling community. Stay tuned for more stories that celebrate the triumph of the human spirit. See you in the next chapter. Glowing Star.